Hello, fellow Toastmasters from across Southern Africa. It's always so lovely to host you on the fourth Monday of each month. This is Corporate Leadership Network. If you're here for the first time, this is a forum for leaders from corporate clubs. This community was formed because we know and understand that the challenges that you are experiencing as a member of a corporate club are quite unique to you. And so in this forum, we gather at sessions such as these. We problem solve, we find solutions to our problems, we network. It's such an amazing opportunity to be able to bring this forum to you right here in Southern Africa, District 74. We've covered a lot here on Corporate Leadership Network. When we kicked off the program, we started speaking about unlocking the benefits of Toastmasters in your professional life. I love that discussion that was held or was facilitated by distinguished Toastmaster Karen Levi-Strauss, where she spoke about how Toastmasters can truly benefit you in your personal, but especially in your professional life. And then we spoke about creating quality learning and development sessions. Andrew Tsuro took us through a presentation on the various ways that we're able to create those wow events so that we can attract guests to our clubs and hopefully convert them into members. Speaking of guests, our final session that we hosted in November was all about marketing to your colleagues. How do you attract your colleagues to your club? It was a facilitated session. We had leaders from across Southern Africa share their experiences about what they are doing at their club to attract guests or to attract their colleagues as guests to the club. Today, we're taking the conversation even further. The second half of the Toastmasters here is a lot about membership. We usually call it the business part of the Toastmasters here because a lot of clubs will be looking to become distinguished or better. If your club is participating in the Distinguished Club program, or as I like to call it, the club's scorecard, whether or not it will achieve its goals, one of the important matrices to make that possible is membership. But even goals aside, membership is a very critical part of our experience as Toastmasters. That's how you're able to create wow events when you have a lot of members. But we understand that your club may be finding this a challenge even at this time. And even if you have 5 goals or more on the Distinguished Club program, you may still be finding membership a problem. We're going to be touching on that in detail as it relates to corporate clubs. And I'm very excited about today's facilitator and today's session. But before I introduce him, reminder Toastmasters, let us use the chat box to ask our questions and to engage tonight as our facilitator goes through the session. Tonight, we're talking all about how do we take the guests that we spoke about in November, your colleagues, and convert them into members. It's very unique to corporate clubs. It's not the same as community clubs. And so we're going to delve deep into how this is done. I want to introduce our facilitator. He comes with a very big bio, but you'll understand why when I introduce him. He is a leadership and team coach. His mission is to develop leaders with vision, leaders who are authentic in their interest in people and their challenges, and leaders who have the courage to do what needs to be done to avert these challenges. He helps executive teams, even teams like yourself, to work cohesively and create an environment that allows their teams to perform at their natural best. That's in his 9 to 5. But in Toastmasters, he is a dual member of Entrepreneurs Toastmasters, as well as an English-French Toastmasters club. It's called L'Avenir Toastmasters. It's right here in Southern Africa. He is a past district director, a distinguished Toastmaster, and currently he serves as the region advisor for Toastmasters in Africa, Middle East, and Pakistan. Please join me in welcoming onto the virtual stage distinguished Toastmaster. He's already been spotlighted, Frank Tsuro. Over to you, Frank.
Thank you very much, Maud, and thank you everyone who's joined this session to have this conversation around how do we convert those guests into members, and more so in the corporate setting, how do you actually do that? And so, just to set, the stage and the ground rules, I'm hoping that I won't be talking alone. So I hope that I'll be seeing some reactions, some comments, and I'm that kind of guy that prefers that you interrupt me if you need me to clarify something on the go. So feel free to send a chat, to raise your hand, and we'll be able to interact together as we go on and make things happen. And so, when we talk of converting guests into members, I think one of the big things that I'm a very big fan of is that whenever you're trying to do anything, it's important that you have a strategy. And hope is not a strategy. So, in other words, if you've got a hope that people will come and then after that they'll convert themselves, well, you know what? Luck exists in this world, and sometimes blessings exist in this world, but you could be in better control of the whole process should you have a strategy. And one of the first things that you need to understand when it comes to conversion is that no leads, no conversion. No leads, no conversion. And I think this is the premise that I'm going to really be talking about a lot. And I'm going to be building upon an argument around this as we keep going and chatting about the exercise. So, what do we mean when we say no leads, no conversion? Well, I think the last masterclass, I hear that you had a discussion on how to attract your target audience into the room. And one of the things that's very important is for you to be able to convert adequately, it's important for you to know your numbers. So, for example, there are people in this room who, if you gave 3 prospects or 4 prospects, they'll be able to convert somebody into becoming a member. Whilst for some people, they probably need 6 prospects, and some people need 10 prospects. Now, you yourself need to know how many prospects do you need on average to be able to convert somebody into a member. Because what will happen is throughout the year, you will do things right and you will do all the things that we discussed later right. But at the end of the day, you still have no conversion. And maybe that's because you haven't spoken to enough people. You know, we always we speak to so many salesmen. You know that as a salesman, you need to get used to hearing the answer no, because you will likely hear in your career more no's than you hear yeses. And so I'm going to ask maybe in the chat, who knows how many leads they need for them to usually convert into a member? Who knows their conversion ratio? Yes, no? Who even knows how to find that conversion ratio? Okay, I see. Oh, okay, somebody knows. Yes, that's good. Somebody knows their conversion ratio. That's good. Do you know how to find the conversion ratio, your conversion ratio? Because a lot of times we put ourselves under a lot of pressure when there's actually nothing wrong with what we're doing, but maybe the only issue is the fact that we don't have the right amount of leads. Anyone? Okay, thank you, Rudo. Does anyone want to raise their hand and share with us how somebody can get to know their conversion ratio or their club's conversion ratio? Okay, Rudo, Rudo, this is what you do, and feel free to unmute so that we have this conversation together. You don't have to turn on your video if you're uncomfortable, but you need to go back to your database. Previously, we used to have guest books. Go back to if you want to know your club's average conversion, go to your guest book, and especially if you maintain it consistently, go back to your guest book or now guest database. It may be a spreadsheet and look at all the people that have been guests at your club. Look at everyone that signed the guest book and then count the number of people they are. And then after that, ask yourself how many of these people ended up becoming members. And so you find that maybe the guest book has been signed by 70 people and maybe 7 people have since of that list, only 7 people became members. So what that tells you is that on average, your guest to member conversion ratio is you get 1 member per every 10 that you speak to. It may be possible that you may have signed up 10 people. Now, if you signed up 10 people out of 70, it means that you've signed up on average 1 person per every 7 that you spoke to. So that then gives a sense of how many people you need to actually convert guests into members. So some of you may be seated here having done the right things, prepared all the material that's required to convert a member, but let's just assume that you've spoken on average to 4 people. Maybe you've not actually reached the magical number of 7 that you actually need to convert. So that's the first tactic that I'm going to share today. That for you to be able to convert, they say next, in Toastmasters, we say the most important person is the member, our existing customer. But the next important person is the guest, because without a guest, there's no growth. You can never expect to have a new member without having a guest at that event. And so that's the first thing that I'm hoping that you'll be able to take away from this session. Now, going on from that, you as a club are a business. And the truth is, you've got to tell me what's in it for me when I join you. What is it that I stand to benefit if I become part of you? We call it the value proposition. And a lot of clubs, one of the reasons why a lot of clubs within Toastmasters struggle to actually convert guests to members is you're not able, in layman's language, to convince me why I'm part of the club. In fact, most of you will say, "Oh, Frank, when you join, you can choose the pathway, and then when you do this pathway, you can become a distinguished Toastmaster." And forgive me, but if I'm a new member, I do not know what a distinguished Toastmaster is. The title sounds very nice. It sounds very sexy. I love the title, but what will that title of distinguished Toastmaster do to me? Will it give me money? It's not always a very popular thing to do. Well, there's a difference. If you tell me that if you want to be recognized as one of the high potentials in the company, if you come to Toastmasters, we will help you be seen, right? Then I want to join this Toastmasters club, because I'll ask you, so how will you help me become seen? Well, Frank, we'll firstly teach you how to speak in public, making sure that you're able to structure your thoughts in such a manner that everyone wants to listen to you. And after that, you gain a lot of confidence, not only as a speaker, but as a leader that will allow you to take leadership in the company. And through that, you'll be able to be seen. By the way, did I tell you that every month we always invite an executive to propose a toast? And so if you're one of the high flyers, or maybe our head of learning and development or head of HR, always tracks how this club is progressing. And so if you're doing well in the club, you can easily be seen as a high potential. And this story that I tell you is not theory. A couple of years ago, talk about what Toastmasters can do for you. A couple of years ago, I flew business class to Maputo, and the club, Standard Bank in Maputo, wanted to start a Toastmasters club for their high potentials. Now, I spoke to a lady called Nesia, who was, responsible for these high potentials. And essentially, she wanted to see if Toastmasters could help these Lusophone speakers learn how to speak English, given that in the region, they are surrounded by Anglophone or English-speaking countries. So she said to me, "Well, would you be able to help with that?" And I said, "Yeah, we would be able to do that." And so that's how a club called Kula Toastmasters was born out of that. Now, a lot of the people in Kula Toastmasters, a lot of the charter members in Kula Toastmasters, 2, 3 years later, are probably no longer part of the club. Now, this was not by design, and it may not necessarily be the ideal. But I'm happy to say a lot of those people were since promoted and were able to move on to the next stage in the company. Now, who and by show of reaction, who works in corporate that actually wants to be promoted? Who's looking for a promotion this year? Yes, I see somebody raising their hand. Yes, people want promotions, but other people also want to be recognized, in the company. So there are different needs that people need. So maybe it could be that you know that there are new people who are coming into the company that need a place to make friends. Toastmasters could be that for them. Maybe there's somebody who wants to be seen as one of the high potentials in the company. Well, Toastmasters is a place for them. Maybe someone has had their boss say, if you give another bad presentation, you will lose your job. Well, maybe Toastmasters can help them save their job. So if we're clear about the value proposition that we offer to someone in a Toastmasters club, it becomes easier for us to convert that guest into a member. And just a tip, if somebody says that they're here to improve their communication or their leadership, know that you haven't done your homework enough. It needs to get to the point where they vulnerably share what's in it for them. Well, I want to be a better public speaker because I want to be taken seriously, or I want to become a better leader because I've just been appointed a manager and I don't know what to do with people. And so maybe Toastmasters can help them learn to increase their influence. Or maybe Toastmasters is that platform that will help them become seen by the other executives in the company. Make sure that you position your club and make sure that you're very clear about what each professional, whether you are part of an open corporate or an external corporate, be very clear about what it is that you offer me, and don't hide behind the words communication and leadership, because most of us, including I, don't fully understand what those words mean. But if you talk directly to the things that I need, that becomes very important. Are we clear? Are we clear? Does anyone have something they want to share or add, or an experience? Thank you, Otis, for that thumbs up. So that's it. That's the second thing that I want you to know. Be very clear about your promise. What will your club do for me if I join it? And if you're not sure about that, reach out to people like Maud and the Vame and other people in this community and ask them to help you to frame that. Maybe somebody can do a masterclass on, what kind of value you can offer as a corporate. But when you're very clear about what your club can do, then it becomes very important. I'm a member of as you may have heard, I'm a member of the Entrepreneurs Club. And whilst it's not a corporate club, the reason why I'm a member of this club is I get to interact with other business owners. But it's not just about generic interaction with other business owners. Well, I do get referrals from that community. And so that's why I'm part of that community. I'm also now a member of an Anglo Francophone Toastmasters Club, an English French Toastmasters Club. And guess what? I learned recently, or 2 years ago, that there's a big French community in Johannesburg that's untapped in the coaching market. And imagine if I can speak French, then I could almost be get into an uncontested region in as far as reaching out to clients. And that's what I get out of that. And that's the same applies to somebody who is a professional in a corporate, whether they're joining in from outside or within. You've got to tell them, how will you make their lives better by joining your club? And that's what you want to look at. The third thing that will help you increase your conversion, something closely tied again. Remember, we said we're starting off from that premise of no leads, no conversion. And it's important for you to know your numbers. How many people on average do I need to come in through our doors for us to be able to sign up a member? And we then went on to talk about, okay, once this member comes into the door, what will we promise them that we're able to make their lives better? And let me say this before I move on to the next point. Nobody comes into Toastmasters to be a distinguished Toastmaster or to be an expert Toastmaster of the day or an expert R counter. Well, some of us are bitten by the bug and end up doing that. But it's no use for us to be expert grammarians, expert Toastmaster of the days, or expert R counters. We want to use the skills that we learn in Toastmasters to give us those promotions, to help us become better parents, to help us be recognized in society and make a difference. Whatever it is that different people want, that's why we come into Toastmasters. And so the third thing for you to actually increase your conversions is you've got to understand the company processes and policies and systems that are in place for different things. So, for example, one day I went to Sapi, the paper company, to sell a club, or actually, it was not Sapi, it was General Electric. I went to General Electric, the Jack Welch company here in Johannesburg. They wanted to start a Toastmasters club. And when I went into General Electric, they felt that there's so many people who come into the company but struggle to make friends. And so they wanted to create a platform where people could easily make friends. Well, are you speaking to the person responsible for onboarding in your company and letting them know that you can make their job easier by actually ensuring that anyone who comes in the company can come to a Toastmasters club and actually get to know the other people that work in the building and are able to create friends easily? When you do that, when you have a champion like that and you are able to make their job easier, it makes it easier when I'm being onboarded into your company and your onboarding specialist or whoever is responsible for that in your company says, well, there's a Toastmasters club that you can join that will make a difference. The moment somebody puts in a word for you, it makes a very big difference. I'm a leadership coach professionally. Some of you may have heard this. And a lot of times, a lot of the leaders that I work with, so while some of them are on social media, but the vast majority of them, most of them who are baby boomers, who are in leadership positions right now, they don't necessarily trust social media yet. But if one of their friends says, you must speak to that guy called Frank, I promise you, without asking for many things, that conversion becomes so easy. And that's what happens when you know the company people, the key people in the company. At the Reserve Bank, we've got a club at the Reserve Bank since 1994. And I remember one of the former governors in South Africa always used to say, if I ever hear somebody give a bad presentation, when we pay for Toastmasters here, they'll lose their job. Well, ever since then, that club has been running. Now, it's not been perfect. The club has had its ups and downs. But the fact that the governor endorsed the program, because people want to be seen and some people just like following the boss, that club has managed to survive from 1994, which is something we cannot say for the average corporate that lasts 18 months to 24 months. They've been around now for almost 30 years, thanks to people that actually endorse that program, that are in positions of authority and make things work. But it's not also about just putting in a good word that helps with your conversion. It's also about sometimes in some companies, it's a very flexible system. Money is paid from one central reserve, and if somebody says they're interested, it's very easy for them to get paid. But in some instances, in other departments or companies, there are certain cost centers where each payment needs to come through from. And if you don't know those cost centers, what will happen is it will take you months to learn each cost center and how it necessarily works before you can actually then sign up that member to get that payment into the bank. And what you want to do as a salesperson is to understand all the processes in all the departments, show constant interest in learning the financial process and the processes that it takes to actually go through a learning and development session. And when you know that, by the time somebody comes from that department, you don't even need to wait them for you to tell you or for you to figure it out for 18 months before you sign up a member. You already know everything that is required to actually close that person and to get them to pay from their cost center, and that actually reduces your cost center. I actually learned a lot when Andrew, my brother, was VPM at Central Centurion. Those were the days when Standard Bank introduced SnapScan, and so they got a SnapScan, account. And all of a sudden, from the time they used to sign up a lot of guests, but those days now they were having 10 guests or 12 guests at every meeting, and they'll probably sign up 9 of them. Why? Because people sign up to a program like Toastmasters when they're still, when the energy is still there, when they're still in the meeting or in the learning and development session. So I was told, when they've just experienced the learning and development session and they're inspired and everything is, They're still feeling the energy. They are more likely to say yes then than when it happens later. But I'll come to that point in a short while. So what you want to do is you want to know the processes that happen in each of the departments, so that anytime anybody from that department says they want to join, you already make relationships. Maybe like at some of our corporate clubs currently, we actually have relationships with people who have company credit cards that are able to pay for the Toastmasters dues, so that we don't necessarily have to go through the long process of the EFT in some companies that can be quite complicated. And so you want to learn how you can actually get that money quicker and get that guest to become a member before they are so frustrated by all the processes that it takes for them to become a member. That's how you increase your conversion, by knowing, your surroundings, not only knowing your numbers, but also knowing how it is that you receive money and collect money. We also learned generically, not just in corporate, that at a launch event, the new clubs that wanted to start, that were clear about where the money will be deposited into and how much needed to be deposited, usually charted a lot faster than clubs that weren't sure where the money needs to be deposited. Imagine I've just come to a learning and development session and I've been inspired and I'm like, this can change my life. Suddenly I say, so where do I pay? In some clubs, whether it's a closed corporate or it's an open corporate, members have to invest themselves and no one has the bank account. And so imagine I leave with my money, and when I get home, my wife says, well, Frank, we need to buy bread, or we need to buy this, we need this. And suddenly I don't have the money. And that's how people lose momentum. So that's how you actually ensure that you convert more people, by just knowing those processes, so that you're able to make it, you're able to make it easier to do business with you. That's the benefit of actually doing that. So for now, I want to break a little bit. I'd love to hear somebody's voice. I know some of the things that I talk about are not unique to me. Some of you have applied it. I would love one person just to give me a nice break and share, an experience they've learned in their club that can help people convert more guests into members. Anyone? Yes, Bongani.
Well, how did you see that I raised my hand? I was just about to speak.
I've got eyes and ears everywhere. You can go for it.
Well, what I wanted to share is with corporates, what I find very interesting is if you can get buy-in from other senior managers within the corporate, they become your eyes and ears, because in the organization they are responsible for grooming and growing their reports. So if they see that they are struggling, they might refer them to a Toastmasters, if you already have one internally. So that's what I've seen with us Proconist Toastmasters, that senior managers are also helping. So if you can get buy-in from marketing, HR, and all of these other nice departments, that can really help to get people within the clubs.
Absolutely. And thank you you never underestimate the power of a good word from somebody who's got the authority in your organization. They will just make, by the time somebody comes to you, they're already converted because their boss said so. And so it's important for you to actually interact and get to know people in that way. But I don't want to move away, or I don't want to end this talk without talking about this. It's also about your customer experience, right? Or in Toastmasters, we call it member experience, right? When somebody comes through the Zoom or the Teams chat, for most corporates, right? Are they coming in and are they seeing all videos switched off and they're silent and they're nervous about what's happening? The way you welcome people into that room, it should not sound, you guys, I was briefed by Vami, and Vami was saying to me, and Maud, Vami and Maud were saying to me, we call them learning and development sessions. They're not meetings. Well, what I'm going to say to you, back at you, is talk is cheap, but money buys the drinks. So don't call it a learning and development session, but the experience is that of a meeting. So this means that whoever is the team's master, when I come into your team's or virtual session, what kind of welcome experience am I getting? And this is something that the sergeant at arms in the club or the team's master needs to take care of. By the time I enter, I should be like, okay, this is not just a meeting. This is a learning and development session. And then when I come in, there was the program quality, right? The VPE needs to have put together a full program where people come in and they're able to give prepared speeches and ensure that the people are well prepared. Because the higher the quality of the meeting, the more likely I'm going to say, I want to be like that speaker, or I want to be part of this. Because when I experience quality speeches and quality feedback, I will say, you know what, one day I want to be a speaker like that person, or one day, or I want to be part of this group because if they give feedback so good like this, I don't want to miss out on this. And that's the power that a quality event actually brings into the entire session. And this is the VPE that's responsible for that. Now for the VPM, the membership attendance ratio, right? And a lot of times people ask me, how many members should a Toastmasters club have? Now, we obviously know that we ask for a minimum of 20 members for us to have a Toastmasters club. Does anyone know the reason why we ask for a minimum of 20 people to have a Toastmasters club?
So that you don't have repeat roles?
Right. There are about 20 roles that need to be filled at any event. And so when you've got 20 people in the room, it makes it easier for you to actually fill in those roles, and people don't have to duplicate roles, and it suddenly becomes work and not a fun exercise. So that's the importance. But do all 20 people, if you've got 20 members, do all 20 people attend? Likely not, right? Some for very genuine reasons. So, we know that in community clubs, if you are able to get 70% of your members attending every Toastmasters event, which starts off with you starting to invite, making sure that when Frank is not at the event, you're able to reach out to Frank and say, Frank, we really missed you. We would love to see you at the next event. When you start following up on that attendance ratio and the higher it is, the more the people in the room, the better, the easier it is to create a converting energy that will actually make a difference. But not only that, we used to have a club at a call center that belonged to ABSA. And because of the nature of call center, you found that they could usually, on average, have 25 to 30% attendance at any given event. So this means that if you want 20 people, and this is where we see those who've done some math, but if you want about 20 people in that club, it means that that club needed to have between almost 80 members for it to actually run a very, very good quality event, because only 25% to 30% of them attended. So they needed about 60, 70, 80 members. But if your attendance ratio is 50%, then it means you need about 40 members, because 20 of them will attend. And that's the spirit. That's how you know how many members your club should have. So now you can go back and look at your roster and see how many members you have. Then you can track the average attendance ratio. Then that will tell you whether you're having enough people. Because if you don't have enough people, not only will there be duplication of effort, which causes stress, but it also reduces the energy in the meeting, that in the sessions, in the learning and development sessions, which actually bring out the energy that you want to get people to convert. That's why if you look at people who are network marketers, if you notice most of the times when they say there's an opportunity, they try and bring you at a big event where there are other people, and they use that energy to convert. Why? Because we make most of our decisions emotionally. we see it's red. Oh, and I need something red. Plus, it's also reasonable. So we use a little bit of logic to justify our emotional decisions. And it's always easier to create that vibe, that energy, that emotion that makes it easier for you to convert the more people there are in the room. But where most clubs are almost failing it is that a lot of us are not aware how many people, how many members we need in the club to actually get those 20 people at the very minimum in the club. And so when people come in, they see just a few, some few people. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of my best sessions or some of my best events have been those where few people turned up. But there's no doubt that when there are quite a lot of people, suddenly that speech becomes real because you've suddenly got this audience and there's this energy that comes with more people that then just helps you convert a lot better. So you want to ensure that as VPM, you're working on that, making sure that you're following. The reason why we say our members are the most important customer. When you get our member to participate and when our member is benefiting from the program, it's easier for us to retain it because they actually become better people out there because of us and they want to stick with us. But guess what? When they become good speakers, when somebody hears them speaking at a company meeting, somebody is like, you know what? I want to lead like you. I want to speak like you. Where did you learn that? Guess what they say? My Toastmasters Club. And that again makes it easier for you to convert. So this is where the VPM comes in. The Sergeant at Arms and the team's master are creating that beautiful, welcome environment. The VPE is responsible for that quality experience with nicely prepared speeches and excellent evaluations. The VPM is responsible for making sure that members are participating, but not only just participating, but you're also getting constant feedback. You're like that customer experience officer that's finding out, are you happy with what's happening in the club? What could we do differently? And in that, you're contributing to the creation of quality members who will in turn go out in the world and be poster girls and poster boys for your club, and people start coming to your club and wanting to join. So that becomes important. Now, you also have the club treasurer, right? If you make it difficult for, right now, most banks, for most people work in banks, you are selling the ease of doing business. It needs to be easy for me to do business with you. So there's nothing like a confusing and long and untransparent financial system that stops you from converting more people into members. Sometimes I remember when I was president of one of my clubs, there was a treasurer from one of the other neighboring clubs in my city that kind of took away all our members. And the difference was because whilst I was asking for the full $65 upfront, one of the neighboring treasurers would say, how much do you have right now in your pocket? And somebody would commit $5. And once they pay $5, right, the next time they come back to me, they're like, oh, I've already paid some money at this other club. Now, they're not going to tell you they paid $5, right? In fact, they're not going to go there. They're just going to tell you they paid money. And the fact that they've paid $5 makes them already committed in this other club. And suddenly, because of the favorable terms, they're able to save up and make sure that those terms are done there. Now, I know it's not always possible in corporate to always have some of those terms, but whatever creative solutions that you can come up with as finance person, and you make it easier for people to do business with you, that raises your conversion ratio. So that's how you need to be thinking. And all of these ideas are just things that are coming up as I'm thinking, and some of the things that I've seen of how each and every person in the club can contribute to doing that. Now, there's a comment here from Vashati who says, as you touched on knowing the policies and procedures, kindly share the guidelines for corporate Toastmasters clubs. Our mentor advises guidelines, like we have a 1 hour meeting and all that. And I think those are some of the things that maybe in this particular session, there's so many best practices. Maybe what I could do is I'll share with Maud some corporate best practices. I'll have to dig deep into my email, and maybe some of them need to be updated. But there are things like having shorter events. There are things like inviting an executive to come and deliver your toast once in a while, even if they come in for 2 minutes to propose a toast and leave. The fact that your head of marketing will be there. Anyone who feels that that person needs to see them already comes to the club, and when they leave after 2 minutes, you stay with those people in the club, and those people become potential people that you can convert into your club. So maybe we can always share that in another event when given the shortness of our time. But those are some of the things that you can look into to actually improve your conversion as a club. Now, the same thing applies, as secretary, our secretary in Toastmasters, there are also some policies and procedures and rights and responsibilities that are required from each of us as Toastmasters members. And that's what a club secretary does. But in addition to that, just keeping record of what happens in the club and how the club has always gone on is how we create tradition in the club. And when you notice some of the best schools that you look at in the world, those are schools that have been there for so many years, 50, 60, 100 years or more. And when you look at some of the best companies, they're best companies because they've created a culture. And our club secretaries are key to that because they keep the records that show us how things have been done. I know if you go to a couple of Toastmasters clubs, we were talking about looking about guests to members. It's very easy because in that club, you can actually get a database of all the guests that attended that club since 2014. I actually know one of my clubs used to be famed for that. They used to have records up until the 80s of people who would come to the club and people who were members. So where you are looking for your guest to member conversion ratio, it's before you. Where you're looking at how did they used to mentor people, you can look into that. Where you're looking at why was the club started initially, it's all in there because all those minutes and everything is kept so much that we're not constantly reinventing the wheel. And when you're not longer constantly reinventing the wheel, it allows you to grow upon what you inherit, and you are able to create that quality that helps you convert better. And this is where the secretary comes in. So the PR, like I said, no leads, no conversion. So your VPPR needs to be key in creating FOMO out there and external communications. But at the same time, they are responsible for generating the leads that you will need to actually convert guests to members. And so you as an entire unit are all responsible in improving the conversion. So it doesn't matter which role you are in, you need to ask yourself, what can I do in my role that can contribute to increasing the conversion in the club? And that's how you can actually keep increasing your conversion ratio. So that's another thing that you want to actually look at and make things work. Are there any questions at this stage?
Hi there, Frank.
Yes, Maud.
Shouldn't be asking a question, but I will. So we have a scenario where a lot of our clubs, we've got a lot of closed corporate clubs in District 74 in Southern Africa where they only allow people inside the corporate. And then we have those that are open corporates. They have people inside the company and they have people who don't work in the company. Their PR and their entire strategy is somewhat different. I'd love if we could just very briefly go through that so that we can accommodate those leaders who come from those open corporate clubs.
Well, the way I look at it is that the PR strategy, which is something that you would have covered in your previous session, that's from a conversion perspective, it's usually pretty standard. And some of these things I'm talking, you could even easily take them into a community club. But again, just touching a little bit on that. If you're a closed corporate, so if you're an open corporate, right, you want to invite people from outside. What kind of people from the outside are you looking at? Now, I'll give you, for example, you've got a club like Sasso Secunda, right? And I'm going to talk about the old Sasso club because that's the one I knew more. It used to be called Sasso Synfuels. Now, because it was the only club we had in Secunda at the time, What SASO were also doing, they were also extending a bit of some corporate social responsibility by exposing the community in Secunda to a Toastmasters club. But if you are a corporate club in Johannesburg or Harare or one of the metropolitan cities where there are other clubs, you've got to ask yourself, why should people come into your club, or what kind of people do you want to attract in your club? Because if you don't have that strategy, suddenly you will start attracting the wrong people. In fact, just last year, I had a report from one of our leading partners, corporate partners, where there were people, the people who attended this club were actually really trying to look for business within the corporate. And so a lot of the internal members became frustrated by this, and sometimes were put off to a point where they left the club. And that actually reduced the quality of the club and somewhat left the club with externals only. And we start losing that. So I think the key thing, if you are an open corporate, is to ask, what value do you add to an external? Why would somebody want to become a member of your club externally? And when you know that, that will help you in converting them or selling your value proposition as to why should they join your open corporate club instead of joining an open community club that they can join out there. What is it that they'll benefit from? For example, they may be a finance professional, or they may be want one day to be in the banking industry and want to create networks in that area. That could be a draw card. And so for you to convert somebody quickly, and the whole concept of converting is not just a clinical effort. You also convert like they do in church, you know. You need to convert people by offering them something that will speak to their hearts and speak to what they want to achieve personally or professionally. That's what you offer them. So it could be maybe they have to deliver a presentation that you as your current corporate club, or maybe you're a technical club and they're looking to deliver maybe a proposal as a business owner to other mining companies, you could become a very great audience to listen to a lot of their pitches, which helps them convert more. So that's why you'd invite somebody to be part of that thing. So the way when we look at conversion, there's very little, there's a very small distinction between what needs to happen in an open corporate or a closed corporate. It's more on the PR side, which is actually getting the leads into the club. That's very important, which is something that usually the VPPR would look at, and something that I hope that in your previous session you would also have covered in a little bit. So that's the comment that I would make in that area. Okay, in the absence of anything, I want to end on this note. Membership building is a continuous exercise. I was doing some leadership development training this past weekend, and you know, we were sharing this metaphor of planting the seeds. You see, if you're currently a club officer of a club that's doing well, or a manager for a department that's doing well, right? How would you feel? You know, let's look at these two scenarios. Yes, you're doing well right now and you feel good about it, but imagine if your success right now is not all that you'd have to celebrate. Imagine right now, as a club officer, you say in August, the My Toastmasters Club will get 20 new members from the new interns that will come through because of a conversation we had with the lady that does the onboarding in our company. Or what if you said, well, the marketing team is hosting a symposium next year in March, and we've negotiated with them that next October they will bring their people so that we can prepare them for their presentations next March in doing so. And we call that concept planting the seeds. You know, you've got to leave, you don't just have to enjoy your success right now. You need to plant some seeds that make you look forward to saying, you know what, we've not only achieved this success, but for my successor, they are going to be harvesting guava fruit, which is those interns that are coming through in August. They are going to be harvesting again in October because of this conversation that I had with the head of marketing around the symposium. So you need to plant the seeds. And so the point of this is you do not wait until you're below your membership numbers or your ideal membership number to get members, you need to be constantly having those conversations with people, whether it's with your ideal market or it's with the champions, the senior managers or line managers in the business. Constantly have a conversation about how you can make their life easier. And some of these conversations, they take a year or 2 or 3 to build. But once built, those are the people that help you feed your club with potential new members, making it easier to convert and making it easier for the club to last for time immemorial. And sometimes because of that endorsement you have from senior people, maybe then somebody sticks through long enough to actually get benefit from Toastmasters. And when other people see how somebody was able to rise up the corporate ladder because of Toastmasters, or how somebody was able to move from almost losing their job to becoming an invaluable leader in the business, thanks to Toastmasters, more people are inspired to come in and stick into the program. And as more people, want to be associated with this winning brand Toastmasters, the more people that keep coming and want to continuously engage with the club. And so that is what the concept of converting guests into members looks like. You've got to know, like I said, you've got to have a strategy, right? And the starting point is no leads, no strategy. And it's not just enough to say no leads, or have 1 or 2 leads and you think you're going to convert. What are your conversion rates in your club? Oh, well, we usually convert 1 in every 3 people that come. Okay, so have you invited the 3 before? Because you can do the entire process, right? But if you only brought in 1 person, then you're not going to have that conversion. And then after you know your numbers and you know your conversion, know that, the building process, everyone plays a part in it. Whether you're the president, many people are, in this. I work in the corporate sector, and in as much as we preach servant leadership, the truth is people are still driven by power, and they want to do that. And sometimes people come in and they look at the president, and the president is like a representative of the entire club. So make sure as president that you dress up quite nicely. You dress the part. Make sure as president that you've got a very good and inspiring speech, and that in the beginning you're explaining the reason why the club exists, because that's where people start buying into the club. And at the end, invite people to come in and join the club. Because when it comes from you as the president, I know clubs that use the whole you get a call from our president as a tactic to convert. That's very important. So as a leadership team, you all play a part in actually increasing your conversion in the club. But at the same time, you also need to know what's in it for me. And this is something it's a point that it slipped my mind, but what's in it for me? When I come in, what will you give me? Don't say, yeah, Toastmasters, you do pathways and this. If you're not clear, if you're using the words communication, leadership, pathways, distinguished Toastmaster in your sales pitch, then you're not yet very clear on what value the program can add. And I encourage you to use this community to find out how you can build a pitch that actually speaks to what everyone needs, whether that pitch is Frank wants to be seen so that he's promoted, or Frank wants his ideas to be heard. And so he doesn't want to make a fool of himself. Those are the things that you need to look into so that you convert. And then there's the aspect that we also spoke about where we said you've got to be clear, and maybe this is a point I had actually forgotten to mention. There'll be people that come up with all sorts of stories like time, like I don't have the time, or I don't have the money, or I've got other work to do. And this is why when you actually build relationships and you understand the systems and processes in the company, you'll be able to actually negotiate with HR to make Toastmasters part of their learning and development objectives. So instead of them sitting in boring training so that they can achieve something, suddenly you say to them, well, if you don't have time, do you know that if you're part of Toastmasters, it counts towards your learning and development progression in the company? And because you've actually build the right relationships, you know the processes and systems, suddenly that's how you convert somebody you are not going to convert, because you actually know what objections they were going to come up with, and you've studied the company and the systems and processes, and you're able to do it that way. And so when you do all those things, they all come together and help you convert a little more in your club. So I'm crossing my fingers for a bumper harvest from the seeds that I've planted. Yes, keep planting the seeds. Some of those seeds die before they bloom, but do not get tired. When you can only hope for a harvest if you planted some seeds. So don't get tired. Every day have a conversation. You never know what that conversation will do. Sometimes we've actually gone and sold Toastmasters clubs to certain companies. They say no because that wasn't the right time, or they say no because the particular person in the role did not see the vision or did not appreciate Toastmasters. But now there's somebody that does. So keep having those conversations. And when you plant enough seeds, you have reason to celebrate going forward. Thank you very much to Bame and Maud for having me. I hope that you gained one or two insights that you can implement in helping you convert those guests into members and allow you to have quality learning and development sessions.
Indeed, indeed. Keep planting those seeds. I love what Otis has said. He's crossing his fingers for a bumper harvest from the seeds he has planted. Oh, Frank, you've said a lot. I'm not even going to repeat what you said. I firstly, on behalf of Corporate Leadership Network and the leaders on this call and everyone who will watch the recording, want to thank you for your time, for your expertise. The challenges that we have to deal with at corporate clubs are quite unique to us. I hope that you found the session useful. I hope that you're going to go back as a team and deconstruct everything that Frank spoke about, because you would have heard him saying that membership is an experience, and every single club officer is responsible for that experience. From the time your colleague gets to see about this event, which is part of marketing, to entering into the virtual room, to the entire experience, to the way the president is dressed, it is an experience, and make sure that it is a lasting one so that you can continue to plant those seeds. You've said a lot, Frank. Thank you so much for your time. Leaders, this time of the year, like I mentioned in the beginning, is a very important one. A lot of us, or all our clubs, are going to be renewing our commitment to our personal development. The renewal season is about to open, not as yet, probably about a week from now, but we want to get our corporate clubs in tune and started on that process, because we know and understand that that process does take a while with corporate clubs. And so in coming days, in a day or two, I'm going to drop some information in our corporate club support group on the next steps with regards to membership. We're out of time and I respect your time, so I'm not going to speak about it here. At this point, I'm firstly going to drop in 2 links into the chat box. The first one is a link to this community has a WhatsApp group. It's called the Corporate Leadership Network. If you're not a member of that group, I want to encourage you to join that group by clicking on the link, the first link that's in your chat box, because we're going to continue this conversation. In fact, Frank has agreed to join that group to answer any of the questions that you may have in this month as we lead up to membership renewals. The second number is there to support you on your journey to planting those seeds and reaping that harvest. If your club is experiencing a challenge with membership, I want to encourage you to reach out to me. My number is in the chat box. When you click on that number, it will direct you straight to my WhatsApp. Let's engage and let's speak about how we can assist you plant those seeds, whether it's marketing, whether it's finding your conversion rates, whatever it is to get your member experience to the level that your club wants to. So please do reach out to us. Please do join the community if you're not a part of it, and let's continue this conversation. I don't know, Bame, if there's anything from your side, or if there's anything from any of the leaders. It was a bumper session, leaders. Just to confirm, these sessions take place on the 4th Monday of each month. They're 1 hour, so they're really brisk and quick. We want to make sure that we give you value that you can take back and use to make your club and your member experience better, because as Frank said, the member is the most important customer. I've had an amazing time. I hope you learned something or two. I hope you're going to take this back to your clubs and make your experience even better. I look forward to hearing from you on how we can help you make your experience even better. And in the next day, you will look forward to hearing from me as we speak all things membership renewals for corporate clubs. I've also got something quite special for the club treasurers. So the treasurers in your club will definitely receive a message from me with regards to assistance with that membership renewal process. Leaders, thank you so much for your time. A skill, a very important skill that we learn in Toastmasters is timekeeping. Our sessions start on time, they end on time, and we do not waste any time. I said that we would start at the top of the hour, and we did. And now I say we will end at the top of the hour, and it is exactly 1800. Please have yourself a lovely evening, a rest of the week, and we will gather again on the 4th Monday of February. But until then, the conversation continues on our WhatsApp group. Have yourself a lovely evening further. Bye-bye.